On Wednesday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke about the continued recovery efforts in the wake of Hurricane Ian, focusing on debris removal and financial remuneration for affected citizens and businesses. DeSantis touted the progress that has been made. He announced a first-time-ever partnership with FEMA to expedite the process of removing and disposing wreckage caused by the storm. Following Ian, which caused billions of dollars in damage, DeSantis has coordinated the state response, restoring key infrastructure and helping clear debris, while dealing with the financial logistics of insurance and emergency funding, have been key focal points. DeSantis is currently running for a second term as governor of the Sunshine State. Polls show him maintaining a consistent double-digit lead over his Democratic challenger, Charlie Crist.
Gracia Check, Administrator for FEMA Region 4, Tom McCool, Federal Coordinating Officer for FEMA, Sheriff Carmine Marcino, Senate President Designate Kathleen Pasadomo, and is Representative Botana here, Adam Botana. So as you know, we were 4 weeks ago, Hurricane Ian made landfall here. Major storm, as everybody knows, and as you can see around here. We were very forward in terms of staging as much as we could to help with the response. 42,000 linemen. We had a rapid restoration of power throughout the state on a scale that we've never done so quickly before. Of course, unprecedented search and rescue that was helping particularly people out here where we are right now, as well as other barrier islands and other places where people needed help. We also made sure that where there were lagging in resources for things like power restoration, that we marshaled the resources in the state with other companies to come help in Lee County. And so you were able to get Duke as well as FPL helping the Lee County Electrical Cooperative to rebuild or to help get people back, and now to help rebuild the grid that are on the islands. Of course, we had the barrier islands, both Pine Island, Sanibel, and then Pine Island, both those bridges, they were disconnected from the mainland, and so that created a huge problem just in terms of being able to get the places restored. A lot of people were saying, well, it's just going to take too long. People just need to leave the island, but a lot of people on Pine Island wanted to stay. And so they asked us at the state if we could help, and I said we would. So we were able to get that bridge reconnected in 3 days, which usually is not the timeline that you expect from government. And then we were able to reopen the Sanibel Causeway 3 weeks to the day after the storm. So you've had huge progress being made in both of those areas, which we think is very, very much important. And basically the reason why we've been able to do all that stuff is because I've told, and Kevin Guthrie as our EM director, I said, look, these things are complex. There's a lot of moving parts. We understand that. But what we don't want is just get mired in bureaucracy and mired in red tape. Okay, you have agencies, you have ability, federal, state, local, private organizations that all have a mission related to this in some way. So don't get numb by trying to go through all these dumb red tape. And so cut through it, and that's what we did on the bridges. That's what we did on the search and rescue. That's what we did on the power restoration. And so I asked Kevin, we want to make sure we're also doing that on debris collection and the debris reimbursement process, particularly for areas like Fort Myers Beach. I mean, you guys see the debris that is here. And yes, we've been approved through FEMA for reimbursement. But, the debris removals, typically the public entities remove the debris from the streets and other things like that. But as you've seen, there's debris in residential communities and debris in commercial properties. And so that's really, really significant because you get the debris out as quickly as possible, then you're able to get things rebuilt and get people back on their feet. And I think that if we do better on this than the typical norm is, these areas are going to come back to life much quicker than those areas did. So today we have a number of announcements, but first we're announcing that for the first time ever, the state of Florida has come to an agreement with FEMA to expedite debris removal on private and commercial properties. And we're able to do this because FEMA is going to use new technologies, satellite imagery, but also other technologies to be able to assess damage more quickly for both homes and for businesses. It had been in the past, FEMA would literally have to go door to door to physically inspect structures, but as you know, that can take months to be able to complete. So by leveraging technology, we're avoiding that tedious process and allowing FEMA to make quicker determinations for program eligibility. And we are going to continue to use all remaining resources to expedite recovery in this regard. So FEMA is going to be issuing guidance that will allow us to expedite debris removal in the most impacted areas like Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel, where, of course, we had the most significant storm surge. And so that will accelerate cleanup and recovery efforts. So these waivers will allow debris removal in private communities and may include removal of damaged slabs on private property. So this is not typically the way this is done. Usually that would be not eligible for this type of reimbursement. So we are doing that. This is a great agreement, and we want to continue to do. So we're moving faster than ever on private and commercial property debris removal. We were working on this, and there's obviously a lot of things initially with the search and rescue, particularly out here. The barrier islands, of course, needed to get the bridges and all that. And we wanted the main debris from the roadways and all that was very important. But Kevin's been working on, okay, we do need to get into private and commercial. And just so you know, during Hurricane Michael, Category 5 that hit Northwest Florida, it took more than 20 months to navigate private and commercial property debris removal in some areas. And that actually wasn't like especially slow. That was basically the norm of how a lot of this stuff works. And so this is really accelerating in a positive way, and we know how important it is. And I've been down a lot, as many of you know, and you see debris like this, but what you also see are debris from vessels in both the waterways and on land. And so the Division of Emergency Management has been working closely with FWC, Department of Environmental Protection, the Coast Guard, and local governments to identify and remove vessels and other debris from Lee County waterways and upland private property and commercial as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And so we're also pleased to announce the creation of the state of Florida's debris cleanup program to assist Hurricane Ian survivals with the removal of displaced and abandoned titled property. Again, displaced and abandoned titled property. So residents can submit an online application at iandebriscleanup.com to report the presence of displaced titled property on private or commercial property and request the removal of the qualifying debris, including vehicles, vessels, motorcycles, trailers, and ATVs. To date, 869 vehicles and vessels have been identified on private and commercial properties, with efforts to identify others continuing on a daily basis. Now, the damage that was caused by Hurricane Ian has created a need, as many of you know, for housing, and we've worked hard to make sure Floridians can stay in their communities. And I think people want to stay, but they got to have a valid pathway, a viable pathway to be able to do so. So immediately after the storm, we announced the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program, which provides for short-term accommodations like hotels for those impacted by the storm. This past weekend, I announced that the Florida Housing Finance Corporation has awarded $5 million to local housing partners to help Floridians impacted pay their home insurance deductibles in the 6 hardest hit counties. Now, you have seniors on fixed incomes. We obviously are in a period where we have a 4-decade high inflation rate. That's obviously eating up people's savings if they have expenses apart from this. So there's going to be Floridians that could really use some deductible assistance, and so that's what that will do. FEMA individual assistance also helps with alternate housing, hotels, and rental, and many of you have also used that option, as we know. And we know that many have been staying in temporary housing, but we also know short-term lodging ends, and many of you want to be near your home and property, particularly as you rebuild. So today I'm happy to announce that FEMA Direct Temporary Housing has been improved for impacted individuals whose homes are uninhabitable due to the storm in Charlotte, Collier, DeSoto, and Lee counties. The direct housing program provides up to 18 months of assistance for manufactured housing units, non-motorized recreational vehicles, and other ready-to-occupy housing while folks make plans for permanent housing. Those who've already applied for FEMA assistance do not need to reapply. If applicants meet the criteria for direct temporary housing, they will be contacted by FEMA. Now, FEMA's direct housing program will not be able to meet every household's needs. So I'm also announcing a state-led housing mission to provide travel trailers and recreational vehicles to impacted Floridians who may not be eligible for FEMA's program. Our goal with these programs is for families to be able to live on their own property if they so choose, while repairs to their homes are performed. These communities have been through a lot, and the recovery process, as we know, can be difficult. We know many folks want to be where their home is. That not only gives them more peace of mind, it's more effective with the recovery process as well. So we're happy for this announcement today, these series of announcements. I think it shows that we're committed to aggressively moving this ball forward, continuing to take on issues that the community is seeking assistance from. And I do believe that you're going to see, and Kevin will talk a little bit more about it, but I don't think that there's probably been a precedent for residential and commercial debris removal to be proceeding anywhere close to the pace that we're starting now. So we'll hear from Kevin Guthrie, we'll hear from Tom McCool from FEMA, and then we'll hear from our Senate President-designate Kathleen Passidomo.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your continued leadership and support. As we talk nearly every day, I just want to make sure that people know this governor is committed to this disaster, to the people of Florida. Unlike any governor I've ever seen before. So again, Governor, thank you very much. I'd like to point out the incredible coordination between local, state, and federal partners that has led to this record-breaking speed of our response to Hurricane Ian. As the governor has said, we have gotten a list of waivers, about 11 waivers, that we can implement today after this press conference that took 20 months to get done in Hurricane Michael. That's unprecedented. The division's recovery team, most of which I brought here for this announcement today, has been on the ground in this community both prior to and after Hurricane Ian's landfall. The men and women of the Recovery Bureau of the Florida Division of Emergency Management have been working nonstop for 4 weeks to get this done, and I want to make sure that I tell them from the bottom of my heart, from the governor's heart, thank you very much for what you have done for Florida, for the Floridians and those that live here. We will be here as long as it takes to get families and businesses back on their feet. With these debris waivers, our ability to assist impacted communities is removing hazardous material, hazardous debris, and this will be greatly expedited. Under the governor's leadership, we have already removed enough debris in Lee County alone to fill almost 300 Olympic swimming pools. Having these important conversations and centered around innovative solutions to debris removal just weeks after landfall is building the foundation for a swift recovery for this community. Please keep in mind that in more inland communities with fewer impacts, the traditional application process will have to be followed. So I want to make sure that people understand what you see around us, the commercial debris that is around us, that is what we will be able to do on waivers. However, when you get into more traditional, less impactful debris, we will and we must follow the normal processes. So these are for those catastrophic and extensive areas. We will continue to work diligently with our partners at DEP, FWC, the U.S. Coast Guard to remove other displaced vessels. Again, I reiterate what the governor mentioned today about go to our website, sign up, fill out an application. Residents can visit iandebriscleanup.com. That's iandebriscleanup, all together, no spaces, .com. Or we have a call center as well. That number is 850-961-2002. The state is also proud to supplement FEMA's effort to provide direct temporary housing for displaced families impacted by Hurricane Ian. This first of its kind in the state of Florida is a conglomeration of things that have been taking us about 2.5 years to put together. And I want to thank Colt with FEMA. I want to thank Melissa Forbes with the recovery for agreeing and letting us run this program. Yes, by all means, applause for that. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Deanne Criswell as well as helping us get this done. So that's going to allow us to do something we've never done before. But I want to also set expectations. That is a 6-month program that we are running. So we need to start working on getting you into permanent housing on day one. Day one is today. So again, folks that'll be eligible for that 6-month temporary housing by the state, we need to start programming you into permanent housing today. Governor, again, we could not do any of this without your leadership, and I thank you for that.
Sure. All right, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Tom McCool. I'm the Federal Coordinating Officer. My job is to corral the federal staff on the response to and the recovery from Hurricane Ian. At the high point, we had 4,500 responders here. We still have 2,200 FEMA staff in and around here. And this is the most heavily impacted area. But we have our staff and Kevin's staff all the way to Volusia County. Every county in the state of Florida, all 67, are designated for public assistance, and there's 26 counties currently for individual assistance. The numbers are big. I'm not going to bore you with numbers, but less than 30 days from the federal side, $1.3 billion. I've been doing this a while, and I have not seen that type of money in terms of the individual assistance, Small Business Administration, NFIP, and public assistance. Kevin and his crew worked through processing an expedited project worksheet for over $300 million. It's hard to keep up with the state of Florida, but we've been co-located with Kevin Guthrie and his staff 4 days prior to impacts up in Tallahassee. We moved down here, and we are here. We're opening a joint field office up near the Tampa area, and that'll be open next week, and it's in Brandon, Florida. We have a robust facility open up near JetBlue Park, and that will house the responders and recovery specialists here. So as we get into the true recovery, we will come to you, the applicants, the individual assistance survivors. Now, that being said, we anticipate another 100,000, 700,000 Floridian households have applied for individual assistance. We expect about another 130,000. So you'll see disaster survivor assistance FEMA crews walking down the street, knocking on your doors. Please, if you've already registered, they can update you on your registration. And we have 18 disaster recovery centers set up from here to Volusia County, and we're opening up more. At end state, there'll probably be about 30, and they are a multi-agency disaster recovery center. Now, I want to talk specifically about the initiative. Kevin came up with this idea, and we worked on it for the last 2 weeks. We said, well, could we possibly go to FEMA headquarters and get some waivers? Because as the governor mentioned, private property and limited commercial property debris removal take time. And from FEMA headquarters to the staff at FDM to our staff worked very, very hard. And this morning at 10:15, the first set. Now that is a moving target. We use geospatial. We use individual on-the-ground assessments. We use National Institute for Standard Technology. We use LIDAR, and we used you when you came in and said, "Here's how much damage I have in your home." So that first trunk is coming out, and it came out this morning. We'll continue as we get more damage assessments in. We'll continue to update that. So that is a living document that we will work with the county emergency managers through Florida Department of Emergency Management. And then with the housing mission has been approved for those 4 counties the governor's mentioned, working in tandem with the Florida Department of Emergency Management with the non-congregate sheltering. We think we'll have a housing solution. And from the FEMA side, it's up to 18 months. And you might not just get a travel trailer or a mobile home. That's our 2 options. We also have direct lease. If there's somebody that owns an apartment, we'll go to them and we'll ask to get a direct lease and put the survivors there. Or if we have units that need some repair and that landlord will agree to repair them, we'll reimburse him and we can move in there. We want to keep everybody local. We want to keep you in your communities where you go to church, whatever house of worship, where the kids go to school, and where you're comfortable. That's our number 1 goal. So we'll be working through that in the next several months.
All right, thank
Sir.
you.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it. Yep,
Yes, sir.
Kathleen?
Thank you. I'm Kathleen Pasadomo. I have the privilege of representing many of you in the Florida Senate. I'd like to say a few words to my friends and neighbors in Southwest Florida. I know how you feel, because I remember that Thursday when I walked into my house and the water was receding and all of my personal property was lying in mud. I know how you feel, and I know how you went through stages of grief, and now you're coming back. And I guarantee you that we will build back Southwest Florida stronger, better. And I want to say this because he won't. Governor DeSantis.
We have any?
Yeah, they're on scene.
Oh my goodness. It's all right.
Got any water? Okay, we're good.
Okay.
It's
All
good.
right.
We got.
All right.
You got to take a kiss.
She's fine. She's fine.
It's gonna be okay.
And this just goes to show you the first person that came to our aid was our great governor. He won't say this, but I will. He has a heart for Southwest Florida, and he has been here almost every day since the storm, and he will be here. And his agencies, Kevin Guthrie, we love you. You have done an amazing job. And the other thing I want to say, and one of the biggest issues we have is housing, and it has been a big issue for the last several years. I can tell you Governor DeSantis' office and my office has spent the entire summer working on some legislation that will help relieve the affordable housing crisis. So there's a lot that's going to happen. We are not going to abandon you. We care deeply about Southwest Florida, and we will continue to help you rebuild stronger and better. Thank you.
Okay. And I've already spoken with Kathleen. I had mentioned last week that we'll do a special legislative session between now and the end of the year, and we will do the property tax rebates for the people that property has been destroyed or severely damaged. We suspended that as governor, but I can't do the rebate without the legislature. And then we'll also look to see what other needs there are down in Southwest Florida in terms of additional appropriations or anything that we may need to tweak on a policy front. And so you guys have been great at providing feedback for Kevin and others, but let us know. We've got some good programs that people have been using. We did the no interest loans, and we've got, I think they've dispersed $20 million in that, and you've got $50 million total, and there's enough applications that are in process to probably use that all. So we're interested in looking at that, and also the deductible assistance. We'll see how that's used, but if that's effective, then we could do some more there. So we just want to be helpful, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to get back in very quickly by the end of the year. Okay, anybody before we go? Yes.
For the FGEM director.
Okay.
Hi there. So, your agency partners with CDR McGuire to operate a shelter in North Fort Myers. So we've received reports from people staying inside of black mold and cramped living conditions. What's your response to their concerns?
So the question was about a shelter that's being run by one of our contract staff. I'm going to read directly from an email last night, highlighted and underlined. I'm very happy to hear that all have concluded there were no immediate threats or violations found in the shelter by any groups who have toured that facility. So again, there were some initial findings, or I don't want to even say findings, some initial concerns brought up by people in the shelter. We've had people go to that shelter, look at that shelter, and as of 11:21 p.m. last night, again, I reiterate, I was very happy to hear that we have all concluded that there were not any immediate threats or violations found in the shelter by any of the groups that have toured the facility.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. Okay.